Hi guys, welcome back to Elephants in the Room. Hello, if you're wondering, yes, I'm still sick, unfortunately. I have been sick for how long have I been sick now? I think today's day 5 of this. We've got Coco here. Coco, say hello. Say hi. Say hello. Say something. You guys probably heard her little sneezes there. But I hope you guys had a good week. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Thank you guys so much for being here. I love you guys so much. I'm so thankful for the community that we have, the community that we've cultivated, and how honest and vulnerable you guys are with me, because I see your messages, I see your comments, I see your DMs. And even though I wish I had all the time in the world to respond to every single one of you, I see you guys and I hear you guys and I love you guys. And so I just want you to know that. So thank you so much for being here and letting me be a part of your life. Today we are going to be talking about something that I'm currently going through. But today I wanted to talk about the weight that we carry, how trauma and what we're going through affects the body and the mind. So I want to start by just asking you, have you ever been so emotionally exhausted that even the smallest tasks feel impossible? Or have you had a day where you start crying out of nowhere and you don't even know why? If you felt like this, you're not broken. There's not anything wrong with you. Your body is just holding your story, even the parts you haven't processed yet. So I wanted to talk about this, and I feel like this matters because I feel like this is something that I've gone through many times in my life, and I felt like a failure for, and I felt like there's something wrong with me when I go through it, and I've always been so hard on myself. So my hope is that this will help you guys understand that you're not alone and that you need to give yourself some grace and compassion if you're going through this. So we're going to be breaking down how trauma and stress don't just live in your mind, they show up in your body, how survival mode affects your daily life, why healing isn't just about thinking differently, it's about helping your body feel safe again. And there's been many times in my life where I've felt so physically unwell because of what I was going through emotionally, but I want to talk about a couple of them to help you guys understand where I'm coming from here. So when I was going through my divorce and I was leaving the LDS church, holy Hannah, I was physically so unwell. And I think that's kind of one of the craziest parts about when you get out of a really toxic situation, and when you start to actually when your body starts to not feel in danger anymore and you start to get out of survival mode, your body, it catches up. All the emotional toll and the stress and whatever it is that you went through, the trauma, it catches up to you and the body keeps score. I don't know if you guys have ever read that book. I actually haven't read it, but I've obviously learned a little bit about it. But the body absolutely keeps score. And I used to think that that was a dumb saying and that wasn't actually real until I actually lived it in my own life. And I saw that what I had been through, not only as a child, but really in my marriage and through my divorce and through leaving the church and all of that time when I was in survival mode, when I started to come out of that, I was wrecked. My body was physically wrecked. And it's crazy because you would think that when you're in the midst of something like that, you'd be wrecked, which you totally can be. But oftentimes when you're in survival mode, you're just surviving. And then when you finally step out for a second and start to breathe, it just hits you like a freaking rock. Oh my gosh. So I remember when I first left Arizona and I moved to Utah, when I was going through my divorce/separation, I was living with my sister at the time in a vacation rental. And I remember just feeling so physically sick. I couldn't eat, which I think is a common occurrence for people who are going through a lot of emotional distress because our gut is so connected to our brain. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep, but then when I did sleep, I couldn't get enough sleep and I was exhausted. And I felt so much neck pain, so much back pain. I had the worst headaches ever. I felt zero energy, no energy whatsoever. I felt like a shell of myself. I felt like a zombie. Even just getting up to get in the shower, to brush my teeth, felt like the biggest task. It felt impossible. I was so physically burnt out and drained. It was so painful. And right now in my life, specifically, I'm seeing this same theme happen, and it's that you cannot talk your body out of what you're going through. Oftentimes when we're going through emotional distress or abuse, or we're in a really stressful situation, something that's emotionally taxing, we can talk ourselves out of it and just be like, oh yeah, I'm fine. No, I'm going to suppress my emotions. I'm just going to suppress my emotions. It's no big deal. I'm good. And we can just try to manage it all and handle it all amidst the chaos. But I'm telling you, I've seen in my life time and time again that it will catch up to you. And so right now, I'm currently going through something really, really hard, really, really emotionally taxing, things that I wish I could speak about. And eventually I think I will speak about something with my family. And it's been so emotionally exhausting. Exhausting is a word that I would describe it. And I'm also going through a different situation that is so emotionally exhausting. And let me just tell you, it all caught up to me, because 5 days ago when I was going through the thick of everything, my body literally shut down, and here I am, and I am sick as a dog. Now, yes, is it cold and flu season? Yeah, but I don't get sick a lot, and when I do get sick, I'm usually able to recover quickly. But let me just tell you, my body is screaming at me and telling me, Nicole, enough. This is too much. This is too much. My body is outwardly expressing the toll that has been taken on me physically and emotionally from what I'm going through. And so it's not just emotional. When you're going through something, it also affects you physically. And if it doesn't affect you now, it will. It will catch up to you. And it's so challenging. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because I feel like I'm currently living in this right now. My body's shutting down because it's just too much for me. And I've lived through this before, and I didn't believe that it was a concept. And I think, generally I feel this way. I feel so strongly about this. Oftentimes, all these things that we talk about, survival mode, surviving narcissistic relationships, emotional abuse, all these very woke therapy terms about relationships and about boundaries and about our bodies, people who've never experienced it don't take it seriously. And they think we just say this crap. They think talking about your mental health and talking about your physical health and talking about what you've been through and the way that trauma affects you, they think it's all fake. They don't get it. And I'm here to tell you that until you really go through something, until you really escape and survive a narcissistic relationship or a relationship with a narcissist, until you went through emotional, verbal abuse, gaslighting, trauma, whatever you've gone through, you won't get it. You won't get it. You won't get it. And us over here who've been through those things, we're screaming out for help because we're holy crap, I'm feeling this way, but I'm not going to talk about it, and I'm not going to validate myself because I must just be lazy. I must just not be doing enough. I must just be dramatic. I must just be whatever. And we literally gaslight ourselves into believing that we just have to perform no matter how we're feeling, no matter what we're going through, and that we're dramatic and that we're babies and that we're whatever. And it's not to say that you shouldn't show up for yourself and for your life, even when you're going through stuff. But the start of doing anything properly is validating and understanding that these things are real. They are real. Trauma really affects you. Trauma really affects your mind and your body. It affects your body. And I know you don't want to hear that. And I know all the people on here who are like anti-therapy and think they're too good for therapy are like, This stuff is real. And until you hit your rock bottom and until you go through something really challenging, you won't get it. You won't get it. So, with that being said, let's start here. When you're carrying more, you're just not going to be able to do as much, okay? When life is heavy, you don't have the same capacity as you usually would, okay? That's not weakness. It's not weakness. It's your body conserving energy for survival. Isn't that a crazy concept? That when our body suspects danger and goes into survival mode, that our bodies are preserving energy to protect ourselves, which we're going to get into this, but our body responds the same to emotional danger that it does to physical danger. Do you realize that? And we're going to talk about that. But when life is heavy, you're not going to have the same capacity as usual. When you're really going through the thick of something, you're not going to be able to be at your 100%. And that's okay. And that's something I've had to realize this, in the whole course of my life. But this last couple of days as I've been sick, I'm like, but I'm about to leave for this trip with David and I have so much to do. And I feel like I can't take a break. I can't stop. I've learned differently, but you can't beat yourself up. When your body is crying out for help and when your body is physically drained and when you're starting to see the effects of what has happened to you come manifest in your day-to-day life, just through your energy levels and illness and all these different things, you've got to give yourself some grace. You've got to give yourself some grace. You've got to understand that your capacity may be smaller. Emotional exhaustion makes even the basic tasks overwhelming. Have you ever been going through something in your life, something that you can't tell anyone, something that maybe even you are telling someone, but that it's just something that's so fresh and urgent in your life? And that's me right now. I'm going through something so heavy. I wish I could tell you guys, and at one point I want to, but it has been one of the hardest things I've been through this last couple years, and it's taken such a toll on me. And emotional exhaustion, it literally makes just the basic tasks that you would normally do just more challenging. Waking up, brushing your teeth, doing your work because you have so much brain fog and your headaches and all these different things. It just makes the simple things in life harder. Feeling physically drained after an emotional breakdown or panic attack. Have you ever had all these emotions so pent up within you? And you've shoved them down and you've shoved them down because you feel like you got to just keep going. You got to keep performing. You got to keep showing up to work. You got to keep showing up in what you're doing. You got to do everything right. You can't take a break. You can't rest. And maybe you just feel like you don't feel like your emotions are safe to be let out. Maybe you've had to suppress certain emotions because the situation's out of your control. Maybe you've had to suppress your emotions because you're not ready to talk about it yet. For whatever reason that you're suppressing these emotions, when they finally come up out of the surface and you either share all these emotions and you cry, or you get mad and have a rage of anger, or you have a panic attack because your anxiety gets so bad, you are going to feel physically drained after. Emotions, such intense emotions, physically take it out of you. Like I always tell people this, after getting triggered and being in a state of fight or flight, even if it's momentarily, if you just had a panic attack or maybe you let out a ton of emotions and your body was just very emotionally overwhelmed and you cried, whatever, you're gonna feel like you got hit by a bus the next day. You will. And if you've never experienced that, I'm glad you haven't, but you will. Random waves of sadness, irritability, or crying. Your body releasing emotion when it can. When it can. yeah, just this is why everything feels like too much and how it feels like too much when you're going through something. You know, when you're just trying to survive and you're going through something really challenging, oftentimes you disassociate and or feel numb because you can't deal with it, and it's just so much emotional weight. But when you are going through the depth of things like that, at times the emotions just show up, and they show up when they want to and how they want to. For example, yesterday I went to Pilates. I drove home and I ended up in a cul-de-sac a couple streets away from my house, sobbing in my car. Sobbing. I had such a headache. I felt so drained after I cried. Just crying. Just crying. And it hit me out of nowhere. And I felt so sad. I felt so sad. And, you know, I went about my day, but it's really hard to function in real life when you're going through something really emotionally taxing or stressful, because at random times these moments of just sadness or heavy emotions are just going to hit you, and sometimes it's not at a convenient time. But your body is releasing emotions when it can, especially if you're feeling numb, especially if you're suppressing emotions. So you kind of just have to allow your body to, even if maybe you don't want to, which can feel very frustrating. I learned this the hard way. But have you ever tried to tell yourself to calm down amidst a panic attack? How did that go for you? Not good. Because I want to tell you something. This is crazy. I didn't know that there was psychology and or science behind this. And again, I always preface this in every episode, but I'll preface it again for anyone who hasn't heard. I'm just simply a girl. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychotherapist. I am not a doctor. I want to bridge the gap and be a space where I can point you guys in the right direction towards healing and towards a better life through my experiences, and just being honest about everything I go through in my life and just different topics that I feel like don't get talked about. But I encourage you guys to go and seek out everything I say, test everything I say, spend time researching, spend time with a therapist, with experts. I'm just here to share. And obviously I try to bring in definitions in psychology to bring in truth to these podcasts, but encourage you to seek out professionals. But I want to talk about this. So I remember my therapist used to tell me this, because you guys know one of my deepest wounds and one of my biggest sources of trauma is my abandonment wound, my fear of abandonment. I've had it since I was a child because I was abandoned by my parents. And it was reinforced when I got married, and all throughout my life, I've always had a fear of abandonment. Always. It's my biggest wound. So when I start to get triggered and feel that I'm going to be abandoned, my body shuts down. My body literally shuts down. I go into fight or flight. What starts to happen is I start to obviously feel very overwhelmed. I start to panic. My mind starts to race. And then I literally feel that my throat closes up. My chest gets tight. I feel like I can't breathe. And in those moments, so deeply, I, in the past, have wanted to just solve it. This feeling that I'm having and this fear that I'm having that's making me feel in danger, that's making my body feel in danger because I have this fear of abandonment, I want to solve it. I want a solution in this very moment, because that will help it go away. That will help me feel better. You can't do that. Because when you are in fight or flight, or when you are panicking and you are triggered, you can't logic with yourself. And I want to talk about the science behind this, because this is crazy. So my therapist used to tell me this. She used to be like, Nicole, when you get triggered like that, don't try to talk it out. Find a solution. You need to practice self-care and self-soothing. You need to do that. And then once your body comes out of that place and your body starts to feel safe again, you come out of fight or flight, then you'll actually be able to reason and logic, but you're not going to be able to do it amidst it. So when you feel unsafe, your amygdala, fear center, takes over and shuts down your logical brain. Did you know that? Did you know that when you feel unsafe, your amygdala, fear center, takes over and shuts down your logical brain? Your body reacts before your mind can even process what's happening. This is why triggers feel overwhelming, even when you know logically there's no real danger, right? So oftentimes emotionally, we get triggered and our wheels start turning, we start panicking. And so maybe from a logical standpoint, we can see, okay, this is being blown out of proportion. I'm not actually in danger. This is okay. So I want to talk about some of the survival responses because I've done an episode on living in survival mode, and I don't know. It was a good episode and I'm grateful I did it. And again, I'm not perfect and I've never claimed to be perfect and have perfect knowledge, but obviously I don't know the depths of all of this. And so I never want to misspeak about something. That's why I try to bring in facts and psychology into my planning of episodes. But again, research these things. But I want to talk about survival mode. So when our body goes into fight or flight and or survival mode, there are 4 different survival responses. Fight. Anger, defensiveness, needing control. Flight, restlessness, anxiety, overworking to avoid emotions. Freeze, numbness, disassociation, feeling stuck. Or fawn, people pleasing to avoid conflict. So when we emotionally get triggered and our bodies gets into this survival response, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. This is why healing isn't just about telling yourself, move on. You have to help your body feel safe first. So, okay, here's what I'm trying to say. When you get triggered like that and your body is acting out these survival responses, you're not going to be able to fix it or solve it or really deal with it until you let your body feel safe enough that it gets out of fight or flight, that it gets out of the survival response. Because in that moment, it senses there's danger and it goes into those survival responses. Yeah, so your body's autonomic nervous system controls your heart rate, breathing, vision changes, and more. It's a built-in stress response. So like fight or flight, it's a stress response. The fight or flight response helps your body face stressful situations. Yeah, so just anytime, like to put it simply, because I feel like people throw around survival mode all the time. And even in my episode prior, like a year and a half ago, I maybe didn't have all the knowledge on it that I do now. And again, I don't want to overcomplicate it or overgeneralize it. What I'm trying to say is that there is a stress response in the body when our body senses danger, whether it's emotionally or physically. And it's the same response, physically and emotionally. If we sense danger, our body goes into fight, flight, freeze, or faint response. That's a simple terminology of it, okay? So you can call it all the things, but it involves a chain of physical and chemical reactions that get the body prepared to stay alive in the face of a serious threat. So it all stems from stress, right? Which makes sense. But if you've ever felt like your body is betraying you, it's not. It's protecting you the way it knows best. So when you get in those moments of panic and of you're having a survival response and you're feeling so out of control of your body, reminding yourself that your body is just doing the best that it can in that moment to protect itself. It's trying to do the right thing. Just to emphasize, you have to feel safe before you can think clearly. You can't logic when you're triggered because your body still thinks it's in danger. Before you can think rationally, your nervous system just has to calm down. So let's talk about ways to get out of that survival mode, survival response. One, this is like a very basic one, but it's very true. It's just breath work. You got to breathe. You got to breathe. You got to just breathe. Take slow, deep breaths. Movement, walk, stretch, get your hands on something. There's so much psychological science behind this, and I encourage you to research it, but getting your hands on something can help your brain get off of something. And there's a lot of different things, and I encourage you guys to go and look them up. But my therapist used to tell me, I want you to write down 100 coping mechanisms, not mechanisms. I want you to write down 100, what did she say? 100 coping strategies? Yeah, healthy coping strategies. Okay, so There's self-care, there's self-soothing, and you need a mixture of both, okay? So self-care could be something like going to the gym, exercising, eating well, going to the sauna, whatever it may be. Self-soothing could be something like reading a book, watching one of your favorite TV shows, coloring, something like that soothes you, going and getting your favorite treat. So I feel like the best thing you can do when you are really triggered and when you are just really in distress is you've got to practice a balance of self-care and self-soothing. And that's what I've learned works best for me. Because once your body feels safe, your mind will catch up. And that's when you can really finally process things logically. So, something to remember, and something that I've had to remember in this time where it just feels so emotionally depleted, is that my worth is not tied to productivity. Rest is a part of healing, and rest is so important. And I just want to reaffirm you guys that it's okay to do less when you're going through more. You're not going to be at your 100%. You can't expect yourself to be at your 100%. And you can tell yourself you're okay, and you can tell yourself that you're fine, and you can try to force yourself to show up for yourself 100% and show up for everyone 100%. But at one point, your body's going to give out, and you have to give your body the rest that it needs. If you're going through a lot of stress and you have all this emotional weight on you, or you've been through something, you have trauma from something that you haven't healed from, and it's catching up to you. I'm just telling you that until you give your mind and your body the time to rest and recover, you're not going to be at 100%. You can't expect yourself to be at 100%. I don't think it's good to just do nothing when you feel this way, because that usually doesn't make you feel any better. So doing things, even when they're hard and even when they feel unmanageable, can sometimes be a good thing, but it is a balance. Allowing yourself space and time to rest and to recover is important, but also knowing that doing those good things actually will help you to feel better, because oftentimes we just need to get our hands on something, which helps get our mind off something. And self-care and practicing self-care and self-soothing things and doing good things for yourself is always going to make you feel better, and oftentimes is going to help you get out of like a rut or, a really bad place. So it's not to say that you need to not do anything when you're struggling. It's just to say that you need to start with a grace and compassion for yourself. And I think something important to remember about what I've learned is that when you are going through something really stressful and emotionally you are just so burnt out and exhausted, your capacity is smaller. So choose wisely what you allow and let into your life, and what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Because I know I've said this, but I'll say it again. You can't be everyone's savior. You can't save everyone. You can't help everyone. You can't show up for everyone. You can't always be the one doing everything perfectly. And there's going to be times where you need help. You need support. You need space. You need distance. You need patience. You need whatever. Like, allow yourself to do that. Allow yourself to not be the people pleaser who feels like if they're not doing as much, or if they're not okay, that they're not enough. Like, we're all fighting so many battles, and there's a pressure that we all feel to show up for ourselves, for each other. And even though there's so much beauty and power in that, there's also so much beauty and power in being authentic and honest about where you're at and being vulnerable about where you're at. Like right now, I'm not 100%. I don't feel 100%. I'm exhausted. I'm mentally and physically drained. I don't feel good. And I'm here on this podcast and I'm talking to you guys. And luckily, this podcast is like all about that. But I can't expect myself to feel great right now and to show up 100%. And I need to allow myself the space to just survive. And that's what's so hard. It's like sometimes you're just trying to survive. And when you're going through something really painful and you're really stressed out and exhausted and just a little hopeless, maybe confused. It's so hard. It's so hard to really show up for yourself and for others. And that's okay. That's okay. And I think the start of really like being able to allow ourselves to heal and recover physically and emotionally is understanding that not only are we going to go through seasons, but like what we go through does affect us, not just emotionally, but physically. And we can't run from that. Just like they say you have to feel you have to feel it to heal it, right? You don't just need to feel it emotionally. Sometimes your body needs to feel it. Sometimes your body needs to purge out everything. And it gets tired. You can't trick your body. It will catch up to your body. It will catch up. Healing isn't about forcing yourself to be okay. It's about learning how to exist in the body you're in at the current state and understanding that you're not always going to be okay. You're not always going to feel good. There's such a pressure on us in this life to have it all together all the time. Have it all together. Excuses. I just feel like there's so much misconception around truly all the effects of trauma at its core. And, classify trauma as you want, but I'll read the definition to you. Because trauma is simply a lasting emotional response to a distressing event that overwhelms a person's ability to cope. So for all you people who are like, I don't have trauma, you do. You 100% have been through or are currently going through something that is causing you emotional distress and that is overwhelming your ability to cope. It can be one-time events, ongoing stress, living in an unsafe environment, whether it's emotionally, physically, or mentally, witnessing trauma, seeing someone else get hurt or exposed to things that they're going through. Trauma affects you emotionally, physically, mentally. It affects your relationships. It affects everything. And I think what I'm trying to get at here is that there are real effects to what we go through in our life. And we try to hide them and we try to run from them because we want to feel normal and we want to feel good and we want to show up and we want. We live in such an overperforming world. Everyone just wants to be successful. Everyone just wants to be known. Everyone just wants to be liked. And truly, life is just so much more than that. Things are meant to be felt. Things are meant to be felt. And I just think that we neglect the truth about the way that things affect us, Yeah, it's just so hard. I think when you're going through something emotional, it just affects you. And I don't know what battle you guys are fighting right now. I don't know what it is that you're enduring. But I just want you to know that you're not alone. And all of us in our own ways are fighting through something, whether it's in your relationship, in your family, in your work, within yourself. Maybe it's you're finally starting to heal and even understand what happened to you and all the trauma that you've endured is catching up to you and you're unwell and you're not okay. Like a lot of us are not okay. A lot of us are struggling. A lot of us are in pain. A lot of us are just surviving. A lot of us are in survival mode. A lot of us are anxious and sad and scared, and we don't like to talk about it because it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you talk about your mental health struggles and or struggles just in life or your trauma or the ways that you're being affected, you can be seen as a baby or as weak. But then if you don't talk about it, then you're not authentic, you're not real. And so it's like all of us are dealing with so much emotional distress in our lives because we're all going through something. Yet we feel like we can't talk about it. We can, but not too much. You can't talk about it too much. So it's like, it's just so hard because we have what we're all going through in our personal lives, which is a lot for many people. And then we still have to show up and try to meet society's standards of like being functioning humans. And I think it's just really tricky and confusing to do. And it's all a balance. But what I'm trying to say is the first and I feel like most important part of working through this is just understanding that it's okay to feel these ways and validate yourself that it's normal and that it's appropriate. And then you go from there. Like I said, that doesn't mean if you're going through something emotionally and you're struggling and you're starting to feel all these types of ways that you just should go rot in your bed for 7 weeks and not do anything because you're sad. I'm not saying that. And I've learned that. I've learned that through my life is that, yes, doing things and still showing up for yourself and other people is important, but limiting your capacity, or not limiting your capacity, but understanding that your capacity is limited. And so you have to limit and protect your own well-being and practice self-care and self-soothing is so important and okay. I've said this like 4 times in this episode, but it's true. I saw it. I literally saw it on Instagram the other day. I posted on the Elephants in the Room story about it. It's okay to do less when you're going through more. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And I was actually talking about this with my therapist today, but she was talking about how there's so many people who develop autoimmune diseases because of being in emotionally or physically or mentally abusive relationships, because chronic stress really, really affects our bodies. And I think I said this before, but that was part of my journey when I first started going to therapy, is I was really angry at myself because it felt like no matter how much good stuff I did, no matter how much I tried to get to a good space emotionally and physically, I was so drained. I was so unwell. And it's crazy because stress is a natural response we have to a lot of things in life. But when we willingly choose to stay in emotionally stressful situations that we don't have to, it can be to our demise. And that ties into that our bodies talk to us. Our bodies talk to us. And I feel like I've been currently going through something where my body is like, Nicole, enough. Nicole, enough. Nicole, enough. And it's like it can't handle anymore. And for a long time, when we're going through emotional things and emotional like distress, we can just push through it. We try to push through it. And we can, but only for so long. At some point, like, it's going to catch up to your body. And that's what I'm trying to say. And your body is going to start giving out on you. And when that happens, you have to reassess. You have to look at it and you have to be like, okay, it's not good to live in chronic stress. It's not good to live in fight or flight. There's a lot of scary long-term effects to it. So am I in a situation where I can remove some of this stress? And if you can, you should. But sometimes that means you're in a relationship or a situation that you really should walk away from, but you're not. And it's not just emotionally affecting you or mentally affecting you. It's actually affecting your health, and it's actually affecting your body. And long term, it's going to catch up to you. And that happened to me. Like, my body was taken out for months after I left my relationship. I was physically so unwell. And it's because I tolerated and put up with so much neglect and emotional abuse or emotional manipulation that, my body shut down, and it was unwell for a long time. So chronic stress in the immune system. Stress triggers the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal. I don't know how to say that, but I'm going to say this instead. Stress triggers the HPA axis, releasing cortisol and other stress hormones. While cortisol is anti-inflammatory in the short term, chronic stress can lead to cortisol resistance, meaning the body stops responding to it properly, leading to inflammation and immune overactivity. The overactive immune system may start attacking healthy issues, leading to autoimmune diseases. When in survival mode, fight or flight, freeze or fawn, the body prioritizes immediate survival over long-term health. And that's why it's dangerous to stay in survival mode. This diverts energy away from repair and maintenance, making the body more susceptible to chronic inflammation and immune dysfunction. Over time, immune cells can become overreactive, mistakenly attacking the body's own tissues, leading to autoimmunity. And this all connects to your gut too. Like, stress can weaken the gut barrier, leading to leaky gut. There's all these things. And I don't want to go over all these things because it's a lot. But it's really important to start healing from the trauma that you've endured. Because if survival mode was triggered by a past trauma, working on that healing can also help regulate your immune system in your body. And doing that also in the present is important because it just affects our bodies. I think that's what I'm trying to get across, is it affects your body. So if you're feeling physically worn out, if you're feeling physically drained, if you're feeling like you can't think straight and you can't eat and you can't sleep and you're unwell, and you think that you can just stay in that toxic relationship, you think that you can just stay where you're at, where it's so emotionally taxing and stressful for you. You can't. At some point, your body's going to give out, and your body is going to have effects from all that it's been through. You can trick your brain, but you can't trick your body. And it's not good for us to live in stressful situations, emotionally taxing situations long term. It's not to say that we won't go through hard seasons, and we don't always get to pick and choose what we go through, but there is effects to all of this. It's crazy. There's even, I wanted to show you guys this. Okay, so I've talked about this before, but you guys know the ACE study. It's the ACEs test. We've talked about this. It ranks your childhood trauma severity on a scale of 1 to 10. Well, it's crazy. So there's this huge study that's been done on it. It's like this big test. And it says that studies have shown a strong correlation between childhood trauma and negative long-term health outcomes, including increased risk of chronic diseases like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, mental health issues, highlighting the significant impact trauma can have on a person's overall well-being throughout their life. There's an impact on your brain development. There is an impact on your physical health, your mental health, social and behavioral health. And it's crazy because there's like actually studies that show that like you are way more likely to develop all of these things if you've endured really deep emotional wounds and or stressful situations, which is trauma. Because we talked about what trauma is, right? Let's just say this again. Trauma is a lasting emotional response to a distressing event that overwhelms a person's ability to cope, okay? So, all of that to say, because this has kind of been all over the place, what you go through matters and it affects you so much. And you just got to understand the severity and the capacity of how these things affect you, so you can start healing, so you can start guarding your heart, so you can start stepping out of those toxic relations, stepping out of those bad situations. And if you're in the midst of an emotional situation and or stressful situation, learn self-care, self-soothing, and practice healthy coping strategies to be able to take care of your body within it. It's important to not just take care of our minds, but take care of our bodies. But what I'm trying to say is a huge part of actually being able to take care of your body, no matter how many times you go to the gym, no matter how healthy you eat, is to start healing from your trauma. You got to start healing from your trauma. And if you're in the midst of something right then, and you're dealing with something that's really taxing, you've got to take care of yourself. And that doesn't just mean go to the gym and eat healthy. No, you got to also emotionally take care of yourself. There's so many different pieces and parts of us that get affected by what we go through, and we've got to honor all of them. And they're complex. And so just for anyone who's watching this or listening, I just encourage you that if you are feeling physically burnt out, exhausted, overwhelmed, and you feel like all the trauma and what you're going through maybe currently is catching up to you, or the trauma from your past is catching up to you, you're not alone. Life is so hard to balance and so stressful and so overwhelming, and it feels like sometimes there's so much information. But I just encourage you guys to learn to validate yourself and to learn to give yourself grace and patience, and be humble enough to know that it's okay to ask for help. Put your pride aside. Get a therapist. If you can't afford a therapist, talk to someone. Reach out to a friend. If you don't have the resources to get a therapist, research about it. Research psychology. Go to psychologists and or therapists, social media. Learn. As much information as you can learn. And journal. Write stuff down. Like, prioritize healing from what you've been through emotionally, and it will also help you physically. And there's effects to all this stuff. It affects all of us. We're all going through it. But we've got to not pretend like it's not there, because it's real. And it affects us. So I just want to close out by saying your emotions aren't just in your head. Your body carries them too. And that means healing isn't just about changing your thoughts. It's about taking care of your body too. If all you did was survive today, and if you feel the weight and the pressure of the world on your shoulders, and you're trying so hard to keep it together, and you feel like you're failing, and you're crying, and you feel numb, and you feel these bursts of sadness and anger and confusion, and you're feeling hopeless, and you're just feeling like alone, and like you're just going through something, and you just feel like you're just surviving, that's okay. It's okay to just survive. But don't leave your place. Don't leave yourself in that place for too long, because it can affect you long term, and you don't want that. Small steps, baby steps. If you're in the thick of it right now, or you're realizing and seeing the way that past trauma has affected you, whether it's current trauma or past trauma, baby steps. I know it can feel overwhelming, and all this information can feel overwhelming. And I want to encourage you that you just got to take baby steps to start healing, to start taking care of yourself, to start prioritizing yourself, to start practicing self-care. Just take baby steps. Doesn't need to be big steps. And I just ask you to listen to your body. Your body's really smart, and your body's trying to tell you what it needs. And your body's trying to tell you what it likes and what it doesn't. So just listen to your body. Listen to your heart. Listen to your mind. Listen to your spirit. And listen to the author of it all, which is God. So I love you guys so much. I hope that you know how much I love you. And to be honest, today's episode is really hard for me to film, just because like mentally my brain feels like it's not working, because I'm so just not well right now, just not okay right now. And I'm sick on top of that. So thank you for your patience with me. And I hope that you still enjoyed the episode, and I hope that it still spoke to you. I love you guys so, so very much. You guys know if you'd like to support me, you can rate and review this podcast, share it with a friend, share it on your story, leave me a comment, DM, subscribe to my YouTube, follow me on social media, all the things. And yeah, I love you guys so, 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 so much. And I encourage you again, I am just a girl who has had a crazy life, who is sharing her experiences and is trying to bring honesty and truth and vulnerability of the things that we don't talk about to the internet. But I'm no expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a counselor. I encourage you to seek professional help. I hope that I can just bridge the gap for you and address all the elephants in the room and be honest about them. I love you guys so, so, so much. I will close this episode out by saying, what elephants are in your room? And I will talk to you guys next week.